Welcome back to the Top Notch Documentaries YouTube channel. In this Israel Keys video, I'll be going over existence and how Israel Keys viewed it. I hope you enjoy. All of us need some kind of meaning in our lives. Whether you find meaning from helping others or by making every day truly count, some element of meaning is needed for a fulfilling life. Without meaning, our existence seems futile, and this often spurs a nihilistic perspective. When it comes to Israel and existence, he definitely had a self-serving existence. His existence focused on damaging other people for his own self-gratification, and he found his meaning from engaging in these cruel actions. As mentioned in the rebellion video, Israel didn't believe in any form of higher power, and this nihilistic worldview only results in an individual making everything in life about them. When you believe that there is no form of higher power, accountability goes out of the window. Israel perfectly fits into this way of thinking. His behaviour only escalated over time, because he had nobody to be held accountable toward, only himself. Israel would have viewed himself as God. He held the power over the life and death of other people, and this was a recipe for disaster. The nihilistic way of thinking is the message that Israel constantly preached. He's quoted as saying religion poisons people and he had no morality. Some people hold negative views of religion, and there is a point to be made in favour of this argument. However, religion does serve many well in positive ways. Religion brings people together, and communities benefit from this shared level of meaning. People feel a strong sense of belonging. When you believe in some form of higher power, you're never truly alone, and life is happening for you, not to you. Something that you perceive as bad may happen in your life, but you choose to look at it as a positive. For example, that rejection is the universe moulding you into a stronger person. As a result, you become a person who doesn't take things personally. Every life event is aiding you, not taking away from you. Sure, existence can be painful and plenty of suffering is going to be endured throughout it, but that's just part of being human. It's how you view existence that is the most important part. Are you going to view yourself as a victim of existence, repeating the cycle by victimising others, by living a hateful existence, based on being cruel and selfish? Or are you going to view existence as something to be cherished, living in existence with the goal of raising your and everyone else's level around you? Israel picked the first option. We all have choices, and Israel chose to view existence in a negative light. I'm sure that there was a level of victimisation on his part. Most serial killers feel this way. Everything about his existence was negative, at least for the most part. His existence was dedicated to harming other people and presenting a fake image to the communities in which he lived. He had no moral centre, and everything that he did was for self-gain and pleasure. Israel made the comment that he felt as though he had figured life out. He knew that he could no longer live with Kimberly and wanted to become nomadic. His future would consist of him travelling across the country, committing burglaries and killing people. All of this self-serving behaviour sounds utterly insane, but from his perspective, the only way in which meaning was gained for him was through his murders. Without this disturbed meaning for his existence, he would be even more empty internally than he already was. He felt that meaning couldn't be gained from anything else other than the way of life that he was living. In essence, Israel fits into the quote, dying to live, living to die. Murder was all that he had. He was obsessed with fantasising about it, and crimes were always on his mind. He only felt alive when he was running around causing damage to people. Fortunately, most people pick up on the fact that self-serving behaviour doesn't satisfy, and this especially goes for serial murder. I do believe that Israel gained much enjoyment from his murders, but there's always another side to the story. His existence truly sounded horrible, from the excessive drinking to his depraved behaviour and frequent self-pity behaviour and comments to family. He could lie all he wanted, but it was clear that he was unhappy, and I believe that this was the case even before he was apprehended. Israel's existence was a repeating cycle of pleasure and misery. For all of the talk about his high IQ, it is insightful to see how oblivious he was to the universe punishing him for his way of living. But then again, he didn't believe in higher power, and so this would have gone unnoticed. Existence is something that everyone views different at the end of the day. Each person needs to identify some sort of meaning for their existence, or risk ending up confined to substance addiction, or even worse, becoming an Israel Keys. Without meaning, existence is dull and self-gratification becomes the main consistent desire. Making the situation worse is the lack of a belief in something higher than yourself. Israel essentially viewed himself as God, and therefore he didn't have to be held accountable for his behaviour. By murdering people, Israel felt as if he had elevated to the level of God. In reality, he was only further self-destructing and making his existence much more painful. Israel would make claims that he was proud of what he had done, and I believe him when he says this, at least to an extent. His demands seem to contradict this though. He was ashamed of certain details from his murders, and didn't want them to be made public. This doesn't strike me as someone who is at least, deep down, proud of his actions. Let's face it, no person who has a wonderful existence lives their life as a serial killer. It just isn't believable. Unfortunately, lack of meaning in today's society is only going to spawn more people like Israel Keyes, in my opinion. Existence is becoming much less meaningful than ever before, at least for some people. The evidence for this is backed up by the high rates of suicide, substance abuse, and people who throw their lives away for fleeting adrenaline kicks, much like Israel. Hopefully, more people can find solid meaning for their existence, or at least create their own meaning. This could be through you seeing the value in you, and using this to benefit other people. And I highly recommend that you do not interpret this finding meaning comment as me telling you to go out and become a serial killer. That is not and never will be a good source of meaning for your existence. This has been the Israel Keyes video on existence. As always, thank you for watching.